Hello. Welcome back to the United Mates Football Podcast. From Los Angeles, California, by way of London, I am your host, Keitel. My regular co-host, Joe, is not on the call today, but we do have a special guest for today as usual. He's the host of My Sunderland XI on YouTube, which is in collaboration with Sunderland Foodbank and the Fans Museum, as well as being a regular contributor to Fans React. We welcome Sunderland fan Matthew Lead to the United Mates Football Podcast. He's fresh from witnessing a pretty spectacular game of football at the Stadium of Light, at the very least spectacular for the neutral, but we will get into that. He's joining me for a match recap of Sunderland's League One second leg semi-final playoff defeat on aggregate, I suppose, to Lincoln City. Sorry about the circumstances, Matthew, but it's a pleasure to have you on the show nonetheless. And how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, mate. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, if it was under better circumstances, it'd be really good. No, it'd be brilliant if I was sitting here telling you how looking forward I am to going to Wembley. However, I'm here telling you how much I'm looking forward to being in League One for a fourth season in a row. But no, to be honest with you, I've had a nice day. You know, came up this morning from London to Sunderland on the train, and had a nice day. Seen a few people I haven't seen in a while, and just overall had a good day. It's just the football that's been disappointing.
It's impressive that you're able to find the silver linings after that disappointment. But before we do get into the action on the pitch, I figure, you know, it's been a while since fans have been inside the grounds themselves. So let's start with sort of the occasion. And I know, the result didn't go your way, but just how good was it to be in the Stadium of Light in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was. You're right. It was brilliant. I mean, first half, the atmosphere was fantastic. I mean, we've had a Stadium of Light full to 30,000. I think with 10,000 fans today, the atmosphere was even better than it has been before. You know, we were singing and everything really. And when the goals went in, you know, it was so great to be in a football stadium and watch your team score and celebrate with other fans, and just at home in your living room on your own with maybe your dad. You know, so it's it was bittersweet today because it was nice being back in the Stadium of Light, of course, and it was lovely being, you know, seeing the fans. It's actually really good seeing the fans like in and around the stadium, like with their Sunderland scarves on, their Sunderland shirts on, in the city beforehand, drinking in the pubs, you know, the outdoor gardens. It was great. It was great to see all of that again because we haven't seen it for so long. It's a weekend, you know. It's a game. It's an occasion we waited for a very long time, and I thought it'd be typical Sunderland to, as soon as we get that occasion, for it to happen that we would it would be a disappointing match. But nonetheless, I hope we are permanently back at the Stadium of Light now, and I think, you know, if we were there all season, we would have really pushed that team on, because I think even today in the first half, the atmosphere really pushed those players on to get level on aggregate. And as soon as Lincoln scored again, it was we just fell behind. And we know this Sunderland team well enough that, you know, when there's a certain point in the game, we kind of know when we're not going to get back into it. And I think we knew today we weren't going to get back into it. But nonetheless, again, to answer your question, it was lovely being back with other Sunderland fans again. So that part of the day I've really enjoyed.
We'll touch on the sort of swings in momentum and swings in atmosphere soon. But, you know, you mentioned being in and around the ground in the city as well, the whole match day experience. I'm over here in the States as an Arsenal supporter. You can see my sort of gear behind me. Definitely jealous of the occasion. But again, before we start with the first half, let's, I suppose, begin with the lineup itself. What did you make of Lee Johnson's starting 11? Any surprises, or were you mostly sort of pleased with how the team lined up?
It was, I think it was slightly different to what we were expecting. He dropped a few players that we thought he maybe wouldn't. And he also started Chris Maguire as well. And we thought we might never see him play for Sunderland again because Lee Johnson just didn't seem much of a fan. But he started him today, took him off after about 60 minutes, and Maguire wasn't happy about that. I was actually just before I came on, I do apologise. I was a few minutes late.
Oh, no worries.
I was just over there in the main entrance of the Stadium of Light while the players and the manager came out, and the amount of fans that went over to Lee Johnson just shouting at him and just saying how his his team selections has been awful. They let him know that they weren't happy with like Charlie Wyke maybe playing every game, or but for me the team selection was absolutely fine today. I think we went with a 4-4-2. It was quite attacking, two big strikers. Each one of them scored a goal today as well. So it was a good enough team to win the game, absolutely. But I think there was just some substitution. There was the substitutions that were the problem for me. I think we've got a player called Jack Diamond. He doesn't do anything. He just runs around. Really, he's like a little fast kid, but he's very like erratic. He's all over the place, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He tries Cruyff turns and like things that he's just not good enough to do. Gives the ball away far too often, and I think that partly the substitutions today was partly the reason why we never got back into it. For me, the team selection was okay, but yeah, it was just the substitutions for me. They were sort of the part of the reason why we didn't get back into the game.
Yeah, as an Arsenal fan, even I can relate, because obviously a lot of criticism has been leveled at Arteta for his use of, or lack of use of, substitutes, or not putting them on early enough, or wrong personnel in the first place. But moving on to the first half, I mean, Diamond you referenced, sounds like he was doing a bit, or tries to do a bit of a McGeady impression. McGeady was kind of the star of the first half, and the game started well for Sunderland. The atmosphere was good. They got behind the team, a couple of set pieces, 2/3 of the possession in the first 10 minutes. You're on top, and then on 12 minutes, McGeady, who I referenced, he goes past his man on the left, and then with his weaker foot puts in a cross for one of those big strikers you were talking about, Ross Stewart, who got on the end of it. And true to form, Black Cats have, been, I think, a team who in the league have got the most goals within the first 15 minutes of games, perhaps even across all of the sort of professional leagues in England. So tell me what you made of that goal, and then what did you sort of, your reference point for Sunderland's foothold in the game? They're 2-1 down and momentum's behind them.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't quite see the first goal. The only reason why is because I drank a little bit too much beer before the match and my eyes were a bit fuzzy. So I couldn't really make out the goal too much. All I know is the ball hit the back of the net. I saw, saw McGeady's cross went in the box and the ball hit the back of the net. But yeah, after that goal, the roar, to just push those players on was incredible. So that was fantastic to see, and I thought, get back into this game, get an early goal, which was a fairly early goal in the first 15 minutes, I'm sure, something like that. And then I thought, this leaves us the rest of the game to get a second goal, and then leaves us however long to get a third goal. And then we actually got a better chance to go 2-0 up, to bring it back 2-2 on aggregate, where Charlie Wyke literally rounded the keeper, and then he just didn't shoot. I don't know why. And then he stopped, and then he just had a shot with his right foot and hit the defender. He didn't just he round the keeper and just have a shot with his left foot. He just stopped, let all the defenders jump in front of him, and then have a shot with his right foot. So that was an easy chance to go 2-0 up. But we did eventually, and we were still, we're being pushed on. The crowd was really pushing the players on, and I thought we were doing fine. But then half time came, and I thought, that half time kind of kills the momentum for our players, because once our players get into a bit of momentum, if they're just stopped, it takes them a little bit of a while to get back into that, into that sort of swing of things. And as soon as half time came, I thought, I don't know, I'm really not too confident in this second half. They came out and we roared them on again, but you can tell as soon as we start the second half, they just weren't in it. And we never looked like scoring a goal. Never. It's very, when I've watched the entire game for every single game this season, you know the ins and outs of each player and what they're capable of. And when they're playing a certain way, what's going to come from them. And we knew watching the players today that nothing was actually they weren't going to create anything. They weren't going to score another goal in the second half or anything like that. I think as soon as halftime came, we did well, but as soon as it all depends on how the second half starts for us. We knew as soon as that team came out and started, moving that ball around, and it didn't seem right. And I think we knew from there, we were just praying. We're like, please just hold on, or just nick another goal somewhere. Just don't concede. That's all we want to do, is just not concede. And that's the only thing that we actually that's the thing we did. And I knew if we conceded, we would lose, because there was no way we're going to score. But yeah, that's just the end story for it, really. It was all about the crowd today in the first half that pushed the players on. Apart from that, the players aren't good enough. That's it. It's simple. League One playing, they're not even good enough. They're like standard League One players. They're not pushing Championship. They're just average League One. So yeah, I think that's what we've learned over this past few seasons, and definitely, the end of this season, a lot of people have realised that these players are probably not good enough to play at this football club.
Well, one, I suppose, decent player who did get the second goal, I think your top scorer for the season, Charlie Wyke, you referenced those, two chances, one that he missed, one that he put away. And the one he put away was a bit of a carbon copy almost of the first goal. Again, it's McGeady, he whips it in left-footed. And Wyke, who has less time to think about it than the one he missed, puts it away. Is that sort of symptomatic of Wyke's play? He does better when he doesn't have too much time to think about things. He rounded the keeper and he sort of, like you said, he delayed, and then he hits the man on the line. Is Wyke more of a predatory striker?
Exactly that. And I think this whole season we've been saying that Wyke only scores one type of goal, and that is a cross into the box and a header and in, or it might be a ball drops down into the box on his feet. If he's facing the goal, it drops down at his feet, he can score. If he's always facing the goal, but like today's goal, if he's facing the goal, comes in front of him, whether it's on his head or his feet, one touch is a one-touch sort of finisher. If he is in a situation where he has to take a few touches or actually do something with the ball, you can never really rely on him to do something. Like today, rounded the keeper and missed. He's done it before, where he's sort of rounded a goalkeeper, or I don't know, taken on a defender, and he just hasn't been able to do it. So I think that area of Charlie Wyke's game isn't great. But I mean, he has only scored one type of goal, and since he's been our top goal scorer, and really our only goal scorer, our second top goal scorer is Ledbetter, and he's got most of his goals from penalties. So our main goals this season have come from Charlie Wyke, and if he only scores one type of goal, it makes it easier for the opposition to do their revision on him and stop that sort of ball going into those areas, which have actually stopped us from scoring a lot of goals recently. So that's sort of one down, because he got a lot of goals, but he's not got that many, recently. I think he's got 31 goals in all competitions this season now, with that one today. So you look at that 31 goals in all competitions, it's good, but individual performances, you could say that that's quite good, but really, if you watch his all-round game, he isn't that great. It's just if the ball drops in front of him, he finishes it and scores. And I know people say, you rely on the strikers to score the goals. Of course you do, but they've got to do more in that game than just score. They've got to hold the ball up. They've got to support, the wingers. They've got to do a whole lot more than just score goals. Because if they're like giving the ball away and letting the rest of the team down, then that's sort of a weak link in your team. And I think people don't realise that when someone's just scoring goals, it just sort of papers over the cracks, really, of the problems. So I think next season, I wish him all the, he's a lovely player. I said hello to him just after the game. He's a lovely person. I've got nothing against him, but it's just footballing ability. He probably isn't good enough to be, at Sunderland. And I think if we want to really take this seriously, we need to get some better strikers in, and that probably means Charlie Wyke leaving us. But look, he's done the best he can do, and that's all we can really ask for. So yeah.
Well, I guess halftime comes around not too long after. There was, a potential call to be made where Ross Stewart gets clattered just inside the area. Quite a clumsy coming together between him and the keeper.
Yeah.
But I think the right decision might have been made at the end to give no penalty. Otherwise, Sunderland completely dominated that first half, as you said, sort of with the wind in their sails from the supporters. And Michael Appleton's Lincoln players are probably a bit shell-shocked, having come into the game with a 2-0 lead. But clearly he said something at halftime. Beyond that, he's made two substitutions that have made a bit of an instant impact. And Lincoln start the second half decently. I think they get a couple of corners. They even hit the crossbar from a corner kick, and that's sort of like a warning that Sunderland don't really take, because another corner kick comes in not long afterwards, and it's Hopper who puts it away. And again, I referenced Sunderland being a side who score the majority, or at least are fast starters in the league. Lincoln notoriously have been a bit of a second half team, so maybe it wasn't such a surprise that they came back with a better performance. But on that Hopper goal, I think it might even have been Wyke himself who lost Hopper from the corner, and it's 2-1. You sort of said earlier that you knew, maybe you got a bit of a feeling that things weren't gonna work out. But considering how dominant you were in the first half, it must have been extra gutting to come out and sort of forget how good you were playing in the first place and just sort of give the impetus to Lincoln City to wrestle the game back.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a fantastic first half. We've actually had a first half similar like that in Lincoln City before this season. When we played away, we were 3-0 up in the first half. And we were playing really well that day. Sort of similar today. We were all over Lincoln. Lincoln weren't getting near us. However, the second half, I wouldn't. You know what? They kind of did step up their game, but not that much. We just weren't as, I don't know, in the game. We weren't chasing down everyone. In the first half, we were chasing down everything. We were throwing, like the players were throwing their bodies in front of everything. And every time someone does that, every time someone makes a tackle, the crowd just roar. And that's enough. The players haven't had that all season because there's not been any fans in. So I think they were sort of motivated by that. But in the second half, I think it just the same sort of drive in the players wasn't there, and then it gave Lincoln the opportunity to come out and try and play their half of football, and let them come to life. Really, they did score that goal. It was poor marking. I mean, where I was sitting in the Premier Concourse, so it was above, so it was quite far away from where the actual goal went in. I know you mentioned the potential penalty incident earlier on as well. When I first saw that, I thought definitely that's a penalty, but then I've been told again that people have seen the replays and whatever, and it maybe didn't look like a penalty, but I haven't actually seen it back. But look, I mean, we let Lincoln back into the game, but that's just the thing. That's the inconsistency of players in this league. That's the problem. You're playing the Premier League. You expect the players to play the exact same as they did in the first half and keep it up. But that's the thing in league, when we found so many people are so inconsistent, and we just let teams back into games. I think we've been ahead 10 times this season and we've failed to win 7 of them. So I mean, stats speak sort of louder than just opinions. So that's just a fact for you there. And to be I mean, 2-0 up today, 2-2 on aggregate, put ourselves in a fantastic position. It's almost heartbreaking, really, to think what's happened. But you would think the players would do a little bit more to try and win the game. But yeah, letting Lincoln back in the game is something I knew was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen at some point in the game. But I thought we would do a little bit better than we actually did. But anyhow, we're used to it. We've seen it all before.
Sounds like beyond sort of improvement in the playing squad, maybe some improvement in the game management needs to come from Johnson, and some cooler heads from the players as well. You've got the likes of Ledbetter, who's sort of been there and done that at the top level, likewise McGeady. So you'd expect these types of guys to sort of be able to see a game out. But hey ho, I suppose things went from bad to worse nearly. Worse immediately, because a penalty was given in the same penalty area, but this time it goes Lincoln's way, and that was a Stonewall penalty. But Burge makes a fantastic save to kind of atone for his mistake in the first leg of the tie, where he gifted Lincoln a goal. And then Sunderland, I think, realizing that they need to do something to get some of this momentum back, they make a bunch of subs, get a bit more possession, and otherwise another let off when I think it was McGrandles went through and Sky's a one-on-one chance. But beyond that, I think, at this point, Lincoln have the 3-2 aggregate lead. And actually my old club teammate and a former guest of the show, Aidan O'Brien, was one of the substitutes. He comes on, he has a couple of chances. The Lincoln keeper, Palmer, makes a couple of decent saves towards the end of the game. But beyond that, and I think Aidan McGeady hitting the post, that was about as close as it got. You said you weren't surprised, but nonetheless, were you still disappointed in the final push, given that it's not just, the last few minutes of a game, it's the last few minutes of a season on the line? Did you expect, again, I suppose maybe tactically, more from the side to just give everything and push players forward? Did you think that there were some opportunities missed beyond the actual chances? Were there sort of tactics that could have been employed that could have given you a better chance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think it's actually something I don't think anyone can really work out this whole season. We're like, it gets to this point in the game, but then what do we do? Like, if it's not going our way, what we meant to do then? So I think usually the answer has been bring Chris Maguire on, but Chris Maguire, for us started the match and went off. Sorry, someone's just trying to call me. So Chris Maguire is usually the one we would bring on, if anything. So there wasn't really much we could do. I mean, Aidan O'Brien comes on. Do you know what? We would just play in hoofball second half. There was nothing. We were so desperate. We could just keep hoofing the ball up the pitch, and it wasn't really going to anyone. It just kept going to their keeper. I tell you what, their keeper is not a popular person in that stadium. Every time he didn't even do anything, to be honest with you. And when he first came onto the pitch, at the start of the game, everyone was booing him. I don't really know why, but they were booing him throughout the entire game. But every time we're just trying to hoof the ball forward, it just kept going to their goalkeeper. It's just. I don't know. The tactics. I mean, I don't really know what we've tried. Nearly every tactic you can imagine this season. We've tried a 4-2-2. We tried a 4-3-3. We tried 4-4-2. Now we've got the formation down to 1-1-1-1-1-1-1. You know what I mean? Like, we don't actually know what we're playing anymore. We've tried every formation and nothing really seems to be working. So we ended up just chucking a 4-4-2 on and just hoofing the ball up to the big strikers, and even that didn't really do too much. So. Yeah, look, I mean, it's difficult to look at it. When we, in hindsight, going, who would you sort of bring on? Who would you bring on and bring off or whatever? I think Jack Diamond bringing on was a big mistake early on, because he doesn't really do anything. That's my main one for me. I'm not an anti Jack Diamond person or anything. Well, I mean, he's a nice enough person, but just as a footballer, he just doesn't really impress me enough. But it's a tough one to answer. I mean, you've got to rely on 11 players on that pitch, doing well. I don't think a single player could have won that game for us, because just a little bit of everyone just isn't very good. Do you know what I mean? And you've all got to be there in a team for each other, and I just don't think they can really rely on it. To be honest with you, I don't think some of the teammates even like each other, because you can see how frustrated they get each other on the pitch. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of trying to bring on different people, I don't know, it's a really tough one to answer, because we haven't really got. I mean, like today, we didn't really have someone really strong come off the bench who's gonna he's gonna come on, and you think, like, come on, he's gonna do something here. You never really thought. I mean, Aidan O'Brien came on and was just trying to do what Ross Stewart was doing all game. That was the ball being hoofed up to him trying to jump and hold it up. That was all he was trying to do. So, yeah, like there were nothing really special that we had on the bench. But I mean, it was just, I don't know. It's really difficult to. I think it was kind of the tactics why we didn't win today. I think we were trying to do things a bit too fancy, and then we ended up resorting to just a hoofball. whether we didn't really try and build the play up or play along the floor. None of that. It was just always hoofball, and hopefully the ball will bounce in the right place and we'll stick it away. That was what it is. There was nothing much to the game. It was just wherever the ball bounces, just try and get on the end of it and get it in. And you can't really go about that for a whole game of football.
No, it didn't work out in the end. And I think on the stream that I was watching the game on, the camera, when extra time is announced, pans to a Sunderland fan in the crowd, and he whips out a flask that he's clearly snuck into the ground, and he's sort of chugging on that. Who knows, probably some hard liquor maybe in there, and probably needed it. But I guess in the cold light of day, now that you've had a little bit of time, I know the game only finished around an hour, a little more ago, but how are you feeling about the season? How are you feeling about the potential of the club? Because from the sounds of things, had you won today, and for instance, projecting forward, won in the playoff final, it might have been papering over a lot of cracks. And this squad, seemingly, if it's not on merit, ready to go up from League One, how would you expect it to perform in the Championship, for instance? Just how much needs to change? Does the manager need to learn lessons? Does the manager need to go? Does there need to be a massive clear out?
Yeah, well, I think the good thing about today is that it's probably saved us a lot of heartache at Wembley again. That's what I think we can all take away from it. But I think a lot of things. Things have to change, of course. I think that things have been changing this season, but I don't think we've sort of had a summer or a transfer window yet to really implement what we want to do. We need to have a big clear out of players first of all. That's what we need to do. We just need to bring in some better players. Really, do a bit of better recruitment, because Hull can do it. Peterborough can do it. Why can't Sunderland do it? Do you know what I mean? It's not impossible. People thinking of it as, oh well, you can't have everything. It's impossible. It's not impossible, because other teams have done it. So we should want to be the best. We should want to be the best in our league. But my feelings about sort of today's game, it's I think I've always done streams and whatever. I've done this kind of thing, coming on straight after a game and just talking about the game. I've got used to this kind of thing. Usually it's me complaining about the team, and I'm getting a little bit sick of just sitting and complaining about. I want to sit here and talk about how great we played and what a great win it was. I really want that day to come sometime soon. But yeah, for me, usually, as I say, I sit here after games, but I'm literally sitting here after a game, but it's also after the season as well. So I'm also coming to the realization that the season is over. And some of the players today will never play for Sunderland ever again. I stayed behind and just said goodbye to a few of them that I wanted to say goodbye to, that I thought have done their best. There are a few I just ignored, but I don't know. It's I feel. The way I would say is, I'm kind of beyond upset and angry after today. It's like I don't really know how to describe it. I don't really know how to feel, but it's just a bit. I don't know. It's like a feeling that we're all used to. We just don't really know what to do with ourselves. Like, after this, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood to do anything. I honestly, I really don't know what I'm gonna do. So it's awful for all the Sunderland fans, and to come. I mean, we're all happy, obviously, to be back in the Stadium of Light today. But I mean, at the end of the day, we were still all there watching a football match, and the team again have kind of let us down, and we don't really know what to do with ourselves. So I mean, we're very upset about that. But I mean, at least we do have a little bit of hope for next season, because it's not like we have our poor owner who hardly has any money. He just keeps stealing other people's money to run the club. We actually have our own owner, a rich owner, and we know the club's going to be in good hands next season. So whatever happens, after today's game, we feel like we're going to be all right. We don't have to worry. We're not going to start cutting back. We're not going to start like sacking groundsmen and making the ticket office staff redundant or anything like that. We're gonna have a we are going to do our best to have a good club and well funded, and hopefully it will bring the community and the club, closer together again, especially now fans are going to be allowed back in the stadiums.
Well, moving away from potential existential crisis about what to do next, and before we get into your show, My Sunderland 11, I think let's add a little bit of levity. Usually we start with our guests by posing an icebreaker question to the group. Obviously, there's just two of us. I kind of skip past that accidentally, actually, even in excitement to get into the action from today. But I think we might as well come back to that, and then we can talk about My Sunderland 11. So, Sunderland tangentially are synonymous with Elvis Presley, because Can't Help Falling in Love is, you'd say, maybe the Northeast club's answer to You'll Never Walk Alone. So the question for both of us, Matthew, what can't you help falling in love with? What is a guilty pleasure of yours? I'll go first, give you a bit of a moment to think about that. But personally, my guilty pleasure is reality cooking shows, MasterChef, Bake Off, Kitchen Nightmares, you name it. I think secretly I'd probably like to be a contestant on one of them eventually, but I'm not a particularly talented chef is the catch. So I think maybe the most fitting one would be a show that we have over here in the States called Worst Cooks in America. But Matthew, what can't you help falling in love with? What is your guilty pleasure?
Well, I mean, God, to be honest with you, I think I do actually. I love watching the cooking shows as well. To be honest with you, I think MasterChef is brilliant. Hell's Kitchen Nightmares is fantastic. Hotel Hell, which I love as well, which is kind of Kitchen Nightmares and then fixing a hotel together. I'm also fascinated by like travel, like aeroplanes and trains and stuff like that. It just stuff like that fascinates me. But I mean, for me, it's the main thing for me is probably the football club. I don't really have many other interests in my life than the football club. It's usually just the main thing. A lot of people have like hobbies, and that's fair enough. A lot of people, they play golf and cricket and whatever. But for me, I'm just so focused on football. Honestly, I think the Sunderland fans can't help falling in love because they can't help falling in love with the football club, and there's nothing that they love more. So I mean, but for me, obviously, there are things I like, as I just mentioned. But yeah, like for me, I love the football club. More than anything.
No, it's a nice way to bring us to some conversation about My Sunderland 11, because obviously you love the club so much that you create your own content surrounding it. And I wanted to give you a moment to tell the listeners a bit more about your show, My Sunderland 11. Where did the idea come from? How did you get started? I guess just tell me a bit more about your whole journey with that.
Well, I started doing it back in January, and it all started from because obviously I live in Essex. By my voice, I don't speak like a Macam. But also down south we're surrounded by a lot of West Ham fans, and there is a guy who does My Hammers 11, and he did it with someone my dad's friends with, and after he did the episode, he sent it around, sent it to my dad. My dad watched it and thought, oh, this is good. West Ham fans are coming on, and they're telling their all-time favorite like 11. They're putting together people that have played for West Ham, and they're putting basically a team together. And I thought, no, that's quite an original idea. No one's doing that for Sunderland, because the Sunderland podcasts are all, there's nothing really that's all about past events. Everything's all current. Everything's all fairly negative. And there's not much positive that's on YouTube about Sunderland. So I think the idea was to bring something on that's people can watch, that's positive, like nice stories. A lot of old players have, people that the supporters haven't heard from since they left the club. Like had Andy Reid on. No one's really heard from him while he's left. About Sunderland. About an hour of ex-players talking about Sunderland. For some people, that's fascinating for me. So I think, so I get them on. We'll have like a little like we've done little podcast thing and have a chat, talk about, how they signed for something, what their best memories are, that kind of stuff. And then we'll go through and we'll discuss, their all-time Sunderland 11. They'll put together a team, they'll tell me beforehand, and we'll list through it. They talk about each player individually. And I think it's a concept that's, not a lot of people, well, hardly any people actually do, because obviously you have the chat before, but then you actually do, you do like an activity of putting together a team. So I think that part is quite good. So I mean, the only sort of thing is that over recent years, Sunderland haven't really had that many amazing players. So there's sort of only 3 eras I think the players are from, and it's either like the sort of the 70s, early 2000s, and maybe just a few recent ones. So there isn't really many in between that. But it's still great, because for me, I'm only 17 years old, and as a young fan, to hear stories about players that I've never heard of, only boosts my sort of intelligence and knowledge about the club. So I think for me it's great. And yeah, as people seem to enjoy it. I do my own thing. I think we mentioned it earlier. I also run a channel called Fans React, SAFC Fans React, and that's all just about current stuff. So it's nice for me to do a bit of current stuff and also talk about the past stuff as well. So I think it's a nice thing for supporters to watch, especially after like today's game, where there's not much positivity around. We're trying to do our best to try and put a bit of positive content out there for people to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, keep up the good work with both of the channels. Otherwise, I think it's interesting to hear that you took some inspiration from a West Ham 11. We actually are fans of putting together 11s on the show, but not always sort of the best 11s. Sometimes it's sort of failed signings or flop 11s, we like to call them.
Yeah.
We had a West Ham fan on a while back, and we did a flop 11 with him. But I think that's probably about as much time as we have for today. So thanks for joining me, Matthew. Hope you've enjoyed being my guest. How can our listeners best follow you and My Sunderland 11? And do you have any upcoming episodes of that show in particular that people can look forward to?
You can follow me on Twitter at Lead Matthew. That's sort of the main one. And then there should be some videos coming next week from My Sunderland 11. Carlos Edwards. He's an ex-player. We'll put out next week. So yeah, there's new stuff as well. Also the YouTube channel Fans React, which I'm also on as well. Recently hit 1,000 subscribers. So just doing our best to try and build up the channels really. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
No, nice one. Thanks again, Matthew. Best of luck with My Sunderland 11 with Fans React, and I suppose good luck to Sunderland for next season. Otherwise, our listeners and viewers, if you enjoyed this podcast, please do subscribe wherever you found us. On YouTube, look for United Mates Football Podcast, and then across our socials, we're at United Mates FP on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a website, unitedmatesfp.com. You can keep up with everything that we're up to by following us on those places, which we would really appreciate. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.